this idea that maybe President Obama ordered an illegal wiretap of his offices. If something like that happened, would this be something you would be aware of?
I would certainly hope so. I can say, obviously I can't speak officially anymore, but I will say that for the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign. I can't speak for other Title III authorized entities in the government, or a state or local entity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this?
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order
Yes.
on something like this?
Something like this, absolutely.
And at this point, you can't confirm or deny whether that exists?
I can deny it.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
Unprecedented allegations from President Trump coming in a series of tweets. He wrote, "Terrible, just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism." And is it legal for a sitting president to be wiretapping a race for president prior to an election? Turned down by court earlier, a new low. And how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon, Watergate, bad or sick guy. The Obama administration denies the claims, but some aren't convinced. One of those people is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, a CIA-trained intel operative and senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. And he joins me now. Good evening, Colonel. Great to see you. Explosive news.
Absolutely.
This happened this morning. You were on Fox and Friends talking about it.
Sure.
Some information and news has developed throughout the day.
Confirming what we said earlier, right?
Absolutely. Confirming what you said this morning on the Fox News channel. So tell us where we stand now.
Well, we stand exactly where you were talking about earlier with your other panelists. And Geraldo, look, I'm sorry, due diligence is not a legal standard for extraordinary use of intelligence resources. It's probable cause. So that's the first mistake. And Kimberly, as you pointed out in the introduction, another campaign, the Clinton campaign, actually had overtly contacts with foreign nations and were actually being looked at for pay to play. So that, to me, is the probable cause you would need to have to actually do the collection. There is no evidence of this in the Trump campaign. And let me be very clear on this. This has been going back. Rumors have been floating around about this since before last summer, actually. The rumor that they would do something extraordinary. And one of the reasons we're seeing this displayed as it is because, Kimberly, President Obama and the Clintons didn't think they could lose. So what I think Mr. Trump is now seeing is he's getting read into new intelligence programs. He's seeing the true capabilities, which we can't get into here. And the other thing that should have been matched with probable cause is there's no restrictions on how much we can collect on foreign powers, to include the Russians. If there were indications through collection against the Russians something was going on, that would serve as probable cause. Clearly, that didn't exist because the FISA court request was turned down in June. This was a fishing expedition using highly technical, highly classified capabilities, which has resulted in, I believe, a major violation of multiple elements of the US 18 code and some other things, too.
Unbelievable. It seems that they were casting a very wide net. This was turned down before on a prior occasion with the court. So what is it? What was the justification and probable cause that was proffered at the time to be able to grant something like this, especially during such a crucial time in American political history, right before an American election for president, and especially when you had someone in the administration, in the White House, President Obama, who was out actively campaigning, as was the First Lady Michelle Obama, for Hillary Clinton. And then now you have this information coming out with now the commander-in-chief, 45th president, saying, wait a second, what was going on here and what possibly could be the justification?
Well, I think they lied, to be quite honest. I mean, someone had to lie. Now, let me be very clear on this. I have actually had to go to the White House to brief these sorts of operations. I've been over there because when you get to this level of issue, the president is personally aware of everything going on. So his statement today about this non-denial was a confirmation. So we have to understand that he was involved. He at least was tacitly knowledgeable, and therefore he is responsible. The buck stops with him. So I think we have to start with that premise. The president knew. When did he know? What did he know? And why did the justification go forward, knowing full well this was a quote-unquote due diligence, not probable cause issue? That's something that has to be resolved.
And there's some information also that we saw today on Twitter. Jon Favreau, Obama former speechwriter,
Right.
issued and wrote this statement out, and we'll give it here for our viewers. I'd be careful about reporting that Obama said there was no wiretapping. Statement just said that neither he nor the White House ordered it. What does that tell you?
Precisely. That tells me there was an investigation that was prompted by someone. Look, Kimberly, the operations I ran, the White House didn't direct, but I sure as heck had to go up there and brief them on all aspects of it and get feedback. In this case, everything going on in the intelligence community, the special operations community, in the Justice Department was all being centrally coordinated by the White House, by President Obama's personal staff. So it is there's just absolutely no possibility President Obama was not fully aware of what was going on, and more importantly, that this was a fishing expedition. There was nothing factual to it. And again, I've said on the network several weeks ago, there's been tripwires laid out. And we both know, we all know, that there has been significant leaks of intelligence information to certain outlets, not you guys,
right.
New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, NBC, and those leaks came from inside intelligence officers who I would say, I'll go so far to say, is they were probably involved in this very collection that we're now talking about. They leaked it.
Friends, joining us now live from Levin TV studio is the former Chief of Staff to Attorney General Edwin Meese, a constitutional lawyer and radio talk show host, the great one, Mark Levin, from his hidden bunker. Mark, thank you very much for joining us this morning. On your Thursday evening radio broadcast, you laid out a devastating case about executive overreach of the Obama administration, which many believe metamorphosized itself to tweets that President Trump sent out on Saturday morning accusing potential wiretapping in Trump Tower. We want to give you a case here this morning to lay out what you know about it, and the evidence you have for the potential executive overreach of the Obama administration.
Well, pleasure to be here. The evidence is overwhelming. This is not about President Trump's tweeting. This is about the Obama administration's spying. And the question isn't whether it's spied. We know they went to the FISA court twice. The question is, who did they spy on? The extent of the spying. That is, the Trump campaign, the Trump transition, Trump surrogates. And I want to walk you through this, the American people. Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1. This is all public. Head Street. 2 separate sources with links to the counterintelligence community have confirmed that the FBI sought and was granted a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court. This is spying. In October, giving counterintelligence permission to examine the activity of, quote, U.S. persons in Donald Trump's campaign with ties to Russia. Let me go on. This isn't me. They say the first FISA request, sources say, named Trump, was denied back in June, denied by the court. But the second was drawn more narrowly and was granted in October after evidence was presented of a server possibly related to the Trump campaign and its alleged links to 2 banks. Now, sources suggest that a FISA warrant was granted to look at the full content of emails and other related documents that may concern U.S. persons. Now, I know people are hung up with Trump's word wiretapping. Well, how'd they get access to this server information? Does it really matter if it was wiretapping, electronic surveillance, or whatever it was? Exhibit 2, The Guardian, a well-known right-wing British paper. Here it is. Quote, The Guardian has learned the FBI applied for a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court over the summer in order to monitor 4 members of the Trump team suspected of irregular contacts with Russian officials. Keep in mind, this is during a presidential election. The sitting president, the incumbent party, is now investigating the presidential candidate of the Republican Party and his campaign to some extent. The FISA court turned down the application asking FBI counterintelligence investigators to narrow its focus. According to one report, the FBI was finally granted a warrant in October. Exhibit 3, McClatchy, another well-known right-wing newspaper. Here they have the agencies. Headline, FBI, 5 other agencies, 5 other Obama administration agencies probe possible covert Kremlin aid to Trump. The FBI and 5 other law enforcement intelligence agencies have collaborated for months in an investigation into Russian attempts to influence the November election, including whether money from Kremlin covertly aided presidential-elect Donald Trump. 2 people familiar with the matter said the agencies involved in the inquiry are the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and representatives of the Director of the National Intelligence. Are you telling me Barack Obama didn't know what was going on in 6 agencies?
As you
hold
go
on, hold on,
how are
hold
you?
on.
Okay, keep going.
I'm not done. I need to make the case because the media seems to be confused about their own reporting. New York Times, another well-known liberal outlet, intercepted Russian communications, part of inquiry into Trump associates, January 19. The FBI is leading the investigations, aided by the NSA, the CIA, Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Unit. The investigators have accelerated their efforts in recent weeks, but have found no conclusive evidence of wrongdoing. Listen to this. One official said intelligence reports based on some of the wiretap communications have been provided to the White House. This is the New York Times,
another right-wing
Exhibit
outlet.
4.
Another right-wing outlet.
Let's continue. New York Times again. NSA gets more latitude to share intercepted communications. In the final days of the Obama administration, the administration has expanded the power of the NSA to share globally intercepted personal communications with the government's 16 other intelligence agencies before applying privacy protections. Now, why would they do this on the way out the door? Well, March 1, Exhibit 6, Obama administration rushed to preserve intelligence of Russian election hacking. In the Obama administration's last days, listen to this, some White House officials scrambled to spread information about Russian efforts to undermine the presidential election and about possible contacts between associates of President-elect Trump and Russians across the government. I'm not done. Exhibit 7, New York Times. Flynn is said to have talked to Russians about sanctions Trump took office. Well, where'd they get this information? Well, Mark, you know, the FISA court, they're always monitoring the Russian ambassador. And so how do we know that? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But there's an awful lot of other activity.
Sure.
Here we have Washington Post. One more. Washington Post, March 2nd. U.S. investigators have examined contacts Attorney General Sessions had with Russian officials during the time he was advising Donald Trump's campaign. The focus of the U.S. counterintelligence investigation has been on communication between Trump campaign officials and Russia. Listen to this. The inquiry involving Sessions is examining his contacts while serving as Trump's foreign policy advisor in the spring and summer of 2016. This has been going on for a year.
Well, Mark,
now,
as you do on your radio program, you lay out a devastating case based on public documents, as you point out, and not right-wing sources, but mainstream left-stream sources. How confident are you that this investigation, which was on so-called Russian hacking, but now the White House says this morning will be broadened to looking into executive overreach, how confident are you they will find something there?
I don't know, but they already found something. The issue isn't whether the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign or transition or certain of its surrogates. The issue is the extent of it. They went into court a second time. They were so aggressive. They waited 4 or 5 months. They go back in October, weeks before the general election. They narrow their request. All of a sudden, we have leaks coming out on Flynn. Then we have a horrible meeting that took place between Sessions and so forth. And I'm telling you, as a former chief of staff to an attorney general of the United States, in the Reagan administration, these are police state tactics. Now, what did Barack Obama know? He knew everything I just read to you apart from 1 or 2 articles. You know how I know? It's in the newspapers. It's right there. So Barack Obama not only knew this, but he gets a daily intelligence briefing. And let me tell you something about daily intelligence briefings. If your attorney general and your FBI is going to the FISA court to get a warrant to investigate aspects of an opposition party in the middle of a general election campaign, how much you want to bet the President of the United States knew that?
I don't want to bet
his
you on that.
opinion. Let me first say, this is the case made by the New York Times, the Washington Post, McClatchy, and the rest of them. I just put it together as a former Justice Department official. And Donald Trump here is being attacked for what he tweeted. Donald Trump is the victim. His campaign is the victim. His transition team is the victim. His surrogates are the victim. These are police state tactics. I am telling you this as a former chief of staff to an attorney general. If this had been done to Barack Obama, all hell would break loose. And it should. And Barack Obama's statement is pathetic.
Mark.
Let me just say this. Where does it go from here? They ought to release both FISA court applications. where they sought the warrant. The one in the summer and the one in October. So we know exactly what they were doing. That's number one. Number two, Congress needs to see the daily presidential intelligence briefings over the past year or so. Those are the beginnings of a serious investigation. Number three, for the Republicans in Congress, you control the majority. If the Democrats do not want to assist, and they won't, because I'm starting to think Chuck Schumer and the others are participating in all this cover-up activity, then plow ahead without them. But this is important to the country. We cannot have a sitting presidential administration unleashing 6 federal agencies, intelligence and law enforcement. I don't mean the president personally sitting there and saying, you know what, Valerie, let's go get them. Obviously, the Attorney General and the FBI were involved in this. This is how you get a FISA court application prepared and submitted.
Do you think former President Obama was involved in this? And if so, how much was he involved?
I'm not Nostradamus here. I just think that we ought to find out. But I will tell you this. He's more involved than he says. I mean, it's his executive branch. It's his Justice Department. Mine's been the IRS. All of a sudden, the IRS is targeting American citizens. I don't know anything about it. We have reporters, including James Rose in the AP, where the Obama administration did more investigations of reporters than any administration in American history. They're quite capable of these things. But it doesn't matter. We want to know what took place, and there ought to be public hearings on this stuff, too. I agree with the Democrats. Let's get to the bottom of this. So join me. Join us. This is the public record. Yeah. It's the newspaper of record, the New York Times. Let's go.
Mark, there's another aspect of this. When you mentioned Chuck Schumer a moment ago, he's been trying to block as many Trump nominations as he can and slow the process. And we had J. Christian Adams, a former Justice Department official you probably know well, on a couple of hours ago. And he was pointing to something very important here, which is now that Jeff Sessions has recused himself, the person in charge here is going to be a career bureaucrat. There'll be career bureaucrats. He said the swamp won because you have people inside justice, some maybe who have been trying to undermine President Trump, who are now in charge of this investigation. And the chances of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate confirming the nomination of the Deputy Attorney General, a Trump loyalist, now seems nil. So they have seized control of this investigation, haven't they?
They not only did that, they have squirreled their appointees into the bureaucracy, and they're buying more and more time to do that. Okay, then recess appoint a Deputy Attorney General. Do that. Say, okay, I'm recessing appointing so-and-so as Deputy Attorney General of the United States. And then, because Attorney General Sessions recused himself from matters affecting the Russian investigation and so forth, then the Deputy Attorney General who is recessed appointed is the acting Attorney General for the purposes of an investigation related to this. So Christian is right. He served as justice in the Civil Rights Division. I'm right. I served as chief of staff. I know exactly what's going on. He knows exactly what's going on. And the administration needs to respond.